Before I found out I was autistic, my whole life I always would say that I need to understand the basics of something first, and then I can move on, but I get stuck there. What am I talking about? This is what is referred to as bottom-up processing. Sounds weird, this term, bottom up. What the heck does that even mean? If you're thinking that, I understand, because when I first studied this, I did the first year of a psychology degree, which is where I learnt about this originally. Didn't make sense to me because they're talking about the way an autistic brain processes information, so much so that the more I learn about this, the more I wonder why the hell it's not used as diagnostic criteria. When I see another person who does this, I immediately recognize them as autistic, even if they're a fictional character. And so what is it? It's simply, when they say bottom up, you think of it that you're looking down at whatever it is in question. That's the way I think of it. Is it a piece of paper or whatever, or information, a computer, whatever the thing is, that's down. That's how I have to think of it for it to make sense. I'm looking down at the thing and I take that information and process it. Whereas neurotypical people, they are what they call top down. Top being the head, they've got prior assumptions about something. So a good way to talk about that, just a coffee shop, for example. If you're autistic, you will get this. If you go to a coffee shop you've never been to before, there'll be all sorts of things that are going to, trip us up and make things hard. First of all, where's the door? How do you get in the place? Other people, the neurotypical people, just roll with that and just go, oh, here it is. Whereas we go, where's the door? I need to know where the door is. We're afraid someone's going to see us looking for the door. Then when we get in there, where do you sit? You're meant to sit down? Do you meant to wait? And all this sort of stuff. Whereas a neurotypical person is pretty confident in their prior experience of coffee shops, whereas we don't trust that at all. We have to take all the information. So think of in the bottom up part, if you think of the coffee shop as bottom down, you're looking down at the coffee shop. It's the way I try to think of it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to me. And as I say, neurotypical people walk in and they don't have to deal with any of that. And this explains a lot about the way we do things. You see it all the time. When I see someone asking a question, a child or an adult, it doesn't matter. Some people see it as that they're challenging the person, they're arguing, whereas, you know what it really is? A request for information. And when people try to say we're arguing, it's really weird because we're like, I don't know why. Well, this is the whole problem, right? Neurotypical, their assumption, the top down from their head, is that whenever someone barks back at them with something in any situation, they see it as somebody trying to question what they've said in a bad way. Like, what do you mean? Prove what you're saying. I don't believe you. That kind of thing. Whereas we might be just literally asking the question. And then when they claim, no, you're doing this, we're like, I don't know how. We're confused. How did you draw that conclusion? So, as I say, this is a really easy way for us, for autistic people, to see that other people are autistic as well. So much so, to me, that's where I start, because there's a lot of things about autistic people that are different. We're all different, which is why it's called a spectrum. There's nobody has it worse or better than anyone else. But this top-down and the bottom-up thinking is so prevalent, and it's so much a part of how autistic people are, that I'm surprised that the diagnostic criteria doesn't start there. And I've looked into this a little bit, not a lot, but from what I can tell, The diagnostic criteria is based on observations and habits and little things that we do, because that's easier. It's easier for neurotypical people. I'm not being derogatory or nasty to neurotypical people saying that, because I truly believe that for neurotypical people, it's difficult to tell that someone's autistic. Whereas an autistic person, of course, it's easy for us. We can see the traits that other people do and go, oh, I relate to that. Oh, that seems like an autistic thing. And therefore, so why isn't it part of the diagnostic criteria? Well, again, I haven't looked too much into this, but from what I can tell from the bit of research that I've done, is that here's the thing. Bottom-up processing isn't unique to autistic people. This is the thing. It's our default mode. It's how we do everything. But think of it this way. So what does a neurotypical person do if they start learning a new language, for example? Well, they're forced to use the bottom up. Again, thinking of looking down at the language they're learning, if you like, or it's written on a piece of paper, the language they're trying to learn, bottom up to the head. Right. So they're forced to use it. So what if you have a test where you're trying to test for top down, bottom up, and the test ends up making the person use the bottom up processing? I guess that's what's hard about it. It's difficult to make a test for something to try to tell if it's your default mode of doing something. And as I'm saying this out loud, I guess, they could make it, the test, ask questions. How do you normally do this kind of thing? I imagine that's possibly how it could go. But yeah, that's just how criteria started. Is, remember, it started out as those of us that were the most obvious to be autistic, and that was, a young white boy who, they saw them as having challenging behavior, but it was just autism. So that's bottom-up processing, the default way that us autistic people process the world around us, and almost every interaction. In some respects, it may seem like a disadvantage, but it's only I think, from the perspective of neurotypical people, where we engage in some activity and we're not getting it, or people will just say, oh, just do this, and there's context that we need, or there's more information, and we'll come back with questions, which, even if you do ask it in the right way, because I do understand that if a neurotypical person, a boss, says, hey, can you do this task? And then you start asking questions, they may interpret that as challenging, that you don't want to do the task. And so I've had to learn to work around that with neurotypical people and ask in a way, and it's not just asking in a nice way, but having to inquire and say, or flat out say, hey, look, I don't really understand. You've asked me to do this, but I need some more information in order to do the job or the task that you're asking, only so that they don't get defensive, and only so that they don't assume, using their top-down processing, that we don't want to do it, or that we're questioning what's this task even for. There's all these assumptions that they make. And maybe over time, when they get to know you, they will learn that when you ask questions, you just require information, you're not challenging them. I think it's handy to know that neurotypical people do the top-down thing and we do bottom-up, because communication breaks down. If we can understand moving forward that we need to provide extra information or explain why we're asking the questions that we're asking, I think we're better off. And when I was first diagnosed, I went around trying to help neurotypical people understand me and autism, and try to raise awareness and get them to do what I would do and learn about it. They don't really want to learn about it. They can't help that. It's not any malice on their part. It's just how they're built. They're using their top-down processing. So what can we do? We can take this into our own hands, and I've only sort of just started doing that over the last 12 months. Instead of expecting people to work around me and learn about autism, I try to be the one who learns about them and learn how to influence the other people. And I will talk about this in another video about where I learnt that. And honestly, I think the path of least resistance is us learning about neurotypical people and how to get through to them and how to communicate in a way that makes sense to them so that we can get what we want. So we can get the information, we can move forward and figure out what needs to be done at a request of somebody else. It's either that or we just got to go round and try to teach every neurotypical person how we think and make them work around it. I don't know which one you think is easier, but I know which one I think's easier.